Hey content creator, I'm Demetria, your friendly content strategist, and I just want to know something. Have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to figure out what type of content to create for your audience, whether it's blogging or podcasting or social media? What are you supposed to be doing, how and when? So in this video, I just want to clarify and simplify what you should initially start your process with. What type of content you're going to start creating so that you can actually get past your fears, your anxieties, and start creating content that you actually love. So let's jump into this. Go ahead and grab your favorite beverage and let's jump into figuring out the best content for you. Truth be told, right out the gate, I'm just going to say that your best content type is the type that you have a strength and an affinity toward. It's something that you're actually probably already good at. So if you're a great writer and you have an inclination toward writing and the written word, then you may want to choose blogging as your way of creating content, your main way. So there's lots of ways you can create content, and I do believe in diversifying that content so you have several types. But for your main core piece of content that makes you happy, the type of content that you can express yourself the best and feel most comfortable and therefore confident in your content creation, that's what you need to choose first as your home base for creating your work. So again, if your strength is writing, then you may want to choose blogging. And from that, you can write content for your social media posts and other things as well. Now, all of us content creators have to do some form of writing, but if you're really good at writing, you probably would do really well with blogging. And you might also do really well with writing newsletters to your subscribers. So that's another way you can really pour your heart into your content and make that deep and meaningful connection with your audience. So look at what you love doing in terms of your content creation. If you are a talker and you just love the spoken word, you're a speaker, whether you want to speak in front of thousands or just a few people at a time, you might want to think about your source of content creation being vocal. So you're going to grab a microphone and start recording. So that could be a podcast. It could also be that you're creating little audio snippets for your audience to listen to in their spare time. And that's something that I used to do a long time ago as well. But just think about the things that you love doing. Another way to connect to your audience through your content is if you enjoy visuals and you enjoy being in front of the camera. So for you, that's creating video. That's making reels. That's making stories for Instagram. Or going live on LinkedIn, things like that. So figure out, and I always say figure this out first before you launch into your content strategies, because your favorite way of making content is going to be home base for you, and it's going to be what fuels you to do all your other content. You're going to have a lot of content to create, but if you initially just start with what you enjoy doing, all the other stuff will come along with the package at the end of the day. For example, if you want to be mostly a podcaster because you enjoy the vocal aspect of talking to your audience and it's just more comfortable for you to hop on a microphone and record something and then publish it, that can sort of be your main pillar or your framework for how you create the rest of your content. So you're still going to be creating other content. You're still going to be publishing posts to Instagram and LinkedIn and all your socials to promote the work that you've done on your podcast. So there'll still be some writing involved. Maybe you'll create a blog post to accompany that podcast episode. But at the end of the day, what you really enjoy doing is the podcast. Let that be center focus and start with that as your foundation for how you create the rest of your content strategy. You just need to start with something, the one thing that you love and that you're good at. Next, you want to think about your audience. So your audience is going to dictate a lot of the time how you show up after, of course, number one, which is how you feel most comfortable showing up. But the second thing is you do have to focus on your audience. What do they love to receive from you and where do they hang out? So if your audience is kind of the younger crowd, they might be mostly on TikTok. Maybe they're hanging out on Instagram, but you may want to show up in the places that your audience is. So if they're on TikTok, then maybe you're creating that type of content. So that's another thing to really just determine how you want to create the basis of your content creation strategy. Know what you're good at, but also know where your audience is. Personally, I think that my audience is mostly going to be on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, and probably a good bit of my audience is on Facebook, even though I don't personally like to be on Facebook. So that's where I have to make decisions about where I show up. Where do I want to be, right? And so that's where I'm going to make the most of my content. So I've been creating a lot of podcasts. But in order to elevate my podcast visibility, I have to show my podcast in other platforms where my audience is. And for me, that's going to be YouTube, and in the near future, ramping up my LinkedIn strategies so that I can attract that audience as well. Understanding your audience's needs is going to help you to make the right decisions about where you want to spend your time online with your content. My next step for you is don't be afraid to experiment. The whole idea of being a solopreneur and content creator is that you get to take this entity of your business by the reins and pretty much take it wherever you want it to go. You get to create this experience. It's your business. So if you find that you love podcasting and yet your audience is not downloading those podcast episodes quickly enough, it doesn't mean that you should quit podcasting. Maybe it just means that you need to present those shows in a different format. So provide a video for YouTube and make sure you're allowing your list to know what's going on. So your subscribers to your email list need to know that you do have a podcast and that you're sharing that content with them. And then push that podcast episode out to your socials. So just experiment with a lot of different formats as well. Maybe you can take a few snippets from your podcast episode and create an Instagram reel, or maybe you can publish it on a story or send it off to your LinkedIn audience and let them know what you're doing with your podcast. There's a lot of different ways to get your content out there. The other thing is freeing yourself to try different formats is going to be the most helpful to you in the beginning of your content creation journey, because you don't know that you like podcasting until you've started one and then have done maybe a few episodes. And then you'll know from that whether or not you actually enjoy creating podcast content. So maybe you want to try this in another format. Try a video, see how that works. See if you like getting behind the camera, recording, speaking, talking, connecting with your audience after you've hit publish, getting on your community on YouTube and talking with them, responding to comments. If you like creating thumbnails, if you like doing the SEO and all of the descriptions and for YouTube, that process is very different than the process for creating a podcast episode. And yet they have some similarities, but maybe you find that one is more pleasing to you than the other. And even with blogging, for example, that is a whole different process. And it takes a whole different mindset to sit down and create a blog post and publish. It's even, to some people, they would argue that it's easier than creating multimedia content because all you're doing is writing. But for others, it's so difficult because writing takes a lot of energy in a different way than getting on a camera and just talking or making a podcast episode. So you want to think about all these different ways that you're creating the core of your content and experiment with different formats. At the end of the day, you're going to choose the formats that are more pleasing to you, that are more comfortable for you. And then you'll also want to not neglect the idea of incorporating all these different elements so that you can do your podcast if that's what you want to be your home base for the type of content that is your number one content type. And then integrating your podcast with maybe a blog, or integrating that podcast with the marketing of the episodes on your socials, which is again another form of content creation. But let's just say that you don't want to only be on LinkedIn or Instagram. You'll want to just diversify the different ways that you show up online. And it's just going to be a lot easier for you once you have experimented with a few different content types. I highly recommend experimenting. It's the only way to figure out what's comfortable for you, what you love doing, what you hate doing. You have to just try. You have to try these different things and see what you like. You never know until you try. Another thing to consider is your resources and your budget. So that said, that may actually be a determining factor for what type of content you create initially. Maybe you grow into some of the other types of content. But if your budget requires that you stick with something that doesn't require as much investment upfront, then maybe you start with a blog. It's very low key. It's easy to get started. It doesn't cost much, not much of an investment. The only thing it costs is your time, really, to learn the skills of blogging and time to allow blogging to grow, because the growth does not happen overnight. Now, if you have a little bit more resources on your hands and you would prefer to do video, then all you need really is a camera, which is your phone. But if you want to invest in better lighting and better camera, there's all kinds of resources out there for you. And I'm not an expert in all of that. So find the biggest, the best, the brightest, whatever you want to invest in. But you really only need a camera that's on your phone. And you might need, a stand for your camera. You might need some additional lighting. I have some lighting in front of me right now, just not only from my window, but some ring lights and so forth. I have a lot of things happening here in front of me that you guys don't see, but it does help with the lighting situation. And so yes, that's an investment you'll have to make when you're making videos. But the other things to think about too with videos is you have your editing program. Who's going to edit? Are you going to hire someone to edit? That comes out of your budget. And then if you're going to be editing, then you'll want a program that you're comfortable using. So that could be anything from Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro or whatever's out there these days. I haven't been keeping up since I've been sticking with Adobe as my thing. I might eventually move to something that's more AI empowered, but right now I'm using Adobe. And so choose what is good for you to use, and that's going to be another investment. Now with podcasting, it's the same thing. You need equipment. So what type of microphone do you need? So I've got a condenser mic. I have a Shure SM58. I have a Blue Yeti mic that I purchased about 2 years ago. And that purchase has been well worth it. The two mics that I have, I've used for the last total of around 15 years. I haven't needed to purchase anything else. So the investment, even though they're a little pricey up front, they stretch over a long period of time. I've also needed mic stands and of course the recording software so that I can record and edit. So for me, that's Adobe Audition, but choose what's best for you. And you'll have to look at what that costs. You'll need hosting for your audios, for your podcast, and that is a monthly price. And then you'll need hosting for your website if you're doing a blog, and that's going to be a monthly hosting or a yearly hosting price. So look at all of your costs for doing your content creation. That is all part of your cost of operations in your business. And so it should be included when you're thinking of running an online business and understanding how much out-of-pocket expenses it's going to be for you. So this is going to help you decide whether or not you want a podcast or whether you want a blog, because you will have to invest. And these investments, for someone who is serious about becoming a content creator, are worth it. Even if it is the bare minimum hosting package or using your camera phone and saving money that way, whatever you need to do, make the investment, but figure out what investments you need to make. Is it worth it to you? And lastly, I just want to say that you should definitely be making content that aligns with your goals for your business. If, for example, bringing a lot of people back to your website very quickly so that you can start building an audience through your blog is important to you, then if SEO is important to you, then you really need to focus on your blogging part of your strategy. And maybe your strategy changes every year because you're working on different parts of your business. So think about what type of content you want to create based on your goals, short-term and long-term goals. Maybe you have another goal, which is to become more personable and connected to your audience so that you build trust. And maybe that means that you should create video to have that face-to-face contact with your potential customers so that they feel a little bit more like they trust you, like they know you, they've seen your face and they've heard your voice and they get what you're saying. And so they're more likely to trust you because you are showing up visually. So then in that case, if that's part of what your business goals are this year, then you should definitely consider making video. And another thing to consider is maybe your time management. So maybe making video takes a little bit more time than you're willing to give it, but you could definitely create a podcast because maybe that's more flexible for you. Maybe you're a young mom raising a family, and this is just an example. Another example could be that you work full time, and when you come home, you're really tired and you just need something quick and easy for that content creation that fits into your lifestyle. Whether you're a busy mom or a full-time CEO and you're just super busy and you can't be in front of your camera making videos, then maybe you could write out a script once a week, get on the microphone, record it. Nobody has to see you. You don't have to show up with all of your energy on a camera, and you also don't have to worry about your kids running into the camera shot or anything like that because you're using audio, and you can edit that audio how you want to and edit out noises that you don't want. And also your kids can be put down to bed and can take a nap while you're making your podcasts. And if you're working full time, you'll have a little bit extra time. Maybe you can fit in a 20-minute recording when you get home from work, and it's just an easier process. So even with the editing an audio versus a video, it's just a little easier to edit audio, in my opinion. And so just depending on where you are in life, you want your content creation to work for your lifestyle. And so that is one of the things that I always like to stress for content creators. So I hope this has been helpful for you. These are 5 steps that will help you figure out what type of content you want to create. And if this has been a helpful video, I invite you to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and leave me a comment down below because I love receiving comments and I will comment back and reply to you. I just want to start building community here at this vlog, and I think it's super important for me to connect with you guys. I really want to help you this year with your content creation. So write me a note and let me know what your thoughts are. And if you have any questions or ideas or concerns, I'd love to hear what you have to say about content creation. So where are you in your journey right now? I'd love to know what type of content you're creating and what you're thinking about doing and like kind of what's going on in your life. Leave me some notes down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to come back with more. Don't forget to watch my playlist. I have more information for you about being a content creator. Talk to you soon. Bye.